I'm gonna let some folks trickle in. Hope everyone's having a great wrap to the week. And geez, already halfway through January. It's insane. As folks are joining now, we're gonna get started in just about 2 minutes. A little under. Hey guys, for those that are joining, we're going to get started here in a few. Great to see some familiar names. We're going to get started in just about a minute, guys. All right, we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. All right, we're going to get rolling here. Just give it one more second. Some folks joining as we speak. All right, let's get rolling. So I'm Sean. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, I'm one of the co-founders, CEO of Hopskip. We host these frequent webinars to make sure that we're providing updates on the product and how the platform is evolving to both planners and hotels. Today's session is going to be primarily focused on the planner side. We have some newly launched features that we want to make sure planners are aware of. If there's any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to post them in the chat. We want this to be, interactive for sure, not a presentation. What we're going to be really covering is how planners can ultimately streamline or turbocharge their RFP process, how they're able to include or implement templates into their RFP creation process. We'll touch on a little bit about some of the updates we've made to our reporting and presentations. And we'll also cover some features that are coming out in the next couple of weeks as a just high-level overview. But again, if you have any questions throughout it, feel free to message them in the chat. We'll also cover too, I'll make sure everyone knows, if you're on the platform live, how you can get support in real time. All right, I'm going to share my screen here, and we are going to walk through some of the updated features. Just give me a moment. Let me know. All right, cool. So I'm assuming everyone can see. This is for those of you who might not be super familiar with Hopskip in general, this is like the first page that you see when you land in the platform. This is what we call your RFP dashboard. It's a one-page snapshot of all of the different RFPs that you're currently managing across your organization. So each one of these column labels represents a different stage in the sourcing process, and each one of these cards represents a different RFP. If you wanted to take a quick snapshot of what this RFP entails without jumping into the details, I've noticed a lot of planners don't realize that this feature exists now, where you click this little clipboard and you can get a summarized version of the RFP, as well as a summarized version of your response rate for each RFP. You can also switch this view to a table view from a card view. So this table view allows you to be able to sort, filter. You'll also see RFPs that have been awarded or canceled in this view that you wouldn't necessarily see in the card view. For those that are on the call that are not planner company teams of one and might have other planners on their team, you're going to have visibility to the RFPs, but you could across your team, but you can filter by RFP owner. So that's something also that we recently came out with that I want to make sure those that are on teams are aware of. To the right of the dashboard, you'll be able to view recent activity. And at the top of the dashboard is where you're going to get a summary of your active RFPs by status, as well as any unread messages or RFPs that need attention for either a selection date or they're past their response due date. Before we jump into the RFP process, I'm just going to quickly touch on the planner toolbox. These are a set of tools or features that planners use on a consistent basis to be able to streamline their RFPs, to be able to stay even more organized throughout the RFP process, and to ultimately be more efficient throughout the entire process. So RFP elements, what those are reusable elements that you're able to save and reuse. They're different sections of your RFP, and you can save and reuse them for future RFPs. So planners are able to come into Hopskip. In every RFP, there's a section for questions. Planners can add new questions by clicking add new. They can even specify the format in which you want to receive the responses to those questions. Enter that once, and then those questions will be saved to the toolbox. You can then set up those questions to automatically be included in all new RFPs, or you can pull them in new RFPs as you see fit. Same thing goes with concessions. So in every section of Hopskip's RFP, there's a section for concessions. Think of this as your master list of concessions, just like with questions. Add them, save them, reuse them over and over again. Same thing with contract clauses. So contract clauses are included in RFPs for planners to be able to request to have included in your agreement with the hotel. Add them here once, and then you'll be able to include them in all new RFPs or pull them in as one-offs as you see fit. Lastly, you can customize the reasons why you're declining proposals. That's going to allow you to be able to trend and understand over time why you're declining certain proposals from which chains or brands or affiliates, etc. You also have RFP templates. So RFP templates are different than RFP elements. Templates in Hopskip allow you to be able to save an existing RFP to a template, and then from the create RFP process, you're able to create an RFP from a template. So for those planners on the call that have recurring events that they're sourcing for every year, every quarter, whatever the frequency is, our suggestion would be turn those into a template. And then when you're getting ready to source for that upcoming event, you're pretty much done creating the RFP as soon as you start. The next couple of things that I'll just quickly go over are your industry contacts. This is an important section for a lot of planners who like to include NSOs, GSOs, or CVBs or DMOs in your RFPs. So you don't have to pick between those and working with those contacts and working with Hopskip. Hopskip allows you to be able to continue integrating those contacts into your process. Think of this section as your master Rolodex of all of your contacts that support your RFPs. So just like with all the other sections in the elements, you'd be able to add those by clicking add new. You would enter that contact's information, click add, and now that contact is going to be saved to your industry contact section of the toolbox. From here, you're able to set these contacts up to automatically be included in new RFPs. And if they're included, how do you want to specify their inclusion? Do you want them to suggest hotels and support the hotels that you handpicked, or just support the hotels to submit proposals that you handpicked and not suggest hotels? You can set them up so they default as this, or you can customize how you want them included in every RFP. Same concept with hotel contacts. So in the new version of Hopskip, you'll see we've broken out industry contacts and hotel contacts. Main difference is the hotel contacts are on-property contacts that submit proposals on behalf of your RFP. Industry contacts are not submitting proposals. They're either suggesting hotels or supporting the hotels you handpick to submit proposals. Last section here I'll quickly hit is collections and notes. So collections, think of this as a list of hotels that you want organized in a list. So this could be like your favorite convention hotels or my favorite resort hotels, or do not source here hotels, right? So you're able to organize hotels into a list, and then you're able to view, access, manage that list accordingly. Same thing with notes. So notes allow you to be able to note or document your notes on any specific property on Hopskip. These notes are purely internal. You can, of course, share them across your team, but these notes do not get shared with hotels. So, like, for example, you might want to note that I had an amazing experience working with this one property in 2022, highly suggested for an upcoming event that's an incentive. And then your teammates will also be able to see those notes. So it creates a nice database of internal knowledge or tribal knowledge that you're able to accumulate across all of the different properties. All right, I'm going to, for the sake of time here, jump back into the RFP dashboard. I'm going to just walk through at a high level the process to create an RFP and some of the recent changes or updates made to this workflow. So to create an RFP or to start to create RFP process, I click the create new button and I'm brought into this view. I'm going to put a name to this RFP, or if I wanted to use a template, like I was mentioning earlier, I would just click create from template, and then I would select which template. If I had them saved in my toolbox, they'll all appear in a drop-down. So I would select the template, and then I click create from template. For the sake of this demo though, let's say create new. We're gonna say the name of this RFP is the annual sales meeting 2026. And now I'm gonna click create. And now I'm gonna be brought into a blank RFP. As I think most of you on the call are aware, and Giselle, great question. We'll make sure that we cover on how you add a note in this flow, because that's a good question that many planners, I don't think, realize that you don't have to be in the note section in your toolbox to always add a note, and I'll explain how in a second. First section of the RFP builder is your request details. This is where you're going to note specific details about your request. So the first tab is your general tab. Really high level information about when you need responses back, when you're estimating the decision to be made. We're going to say the group type's corporate. We're going to say the event type is an incentive. We're going to say the industry type is energy. As I complete each section or each tab, I'll see a green check mark. This next tab, dates. So this is actually a slight enhancement that we recently made to the product. You'll notice when on your dates tab, this is where you're requesting dates for proposal, right? So you might say, I am open to multiple date ranges, right? So, and I want to specify some of the dates. Let's say we want to look at now July 12th to the 15th. Okay, I'm going to add that date. But now let's also look at the following week to the 22nd. So I'll pause for a second, actually cover this date range picker that's different. You can now shift to multiple years really easily. You're also able to select multiple date ranges really easily. This was a piece of feedback that we've gotten from planners that needed to be improved, so we improved it. You're going to be able to now also specify if all dates are equal or if there's any preference. You can allow the hotel to suggest alternate dates, and you can indicate if there's any flexibility in your pattern. So let's say we also are open to start dates on Tuesdays. Great. I'm glad that the calendar is an improvement. Appreciate the feedback. We definitely agree that it needed to be done, so I'm glad we did it. The room block requirements tab is another area that I want to go into just here for a minute, because it's important for planners to understand all of the requirements they're able to specify here. And I think a lot of planners just think that this is the extent of what they could document. So let's just walk through this here together. We're going to say the payment method for the block, it's going to be build a master. We're going to say we need 250 rooms night 1, we need 300 night 2, and we need 350 night 3. Now let's also edit this room block to add some additional detail, right? We can specify if we want to split the block across multiple hotels. If your room block is 600 room nights, or excuse me, 600 on peak, you might be going to a market that doesn't have hotels to be able to occupy that. So you can specify you're willing to split your room block across multiple hotels now. You can add any notes, as well as any budget requirements. And why this matters for budget requirements is because hotels will put the budget requirements in front of hotels when they're responding and reviewing proposals, or excuse me, RFPs, and they'll see that the planner's requiring room rates within this range, for example. All right, so I've done my room block tab, my event space tab. I'm going to kind of quickly go through the rest of these. My event space tab is super important because this is where you're able to build detailed agendas in a pretty efficient way. We're going to add a room to day one. We're going to say we need this room for our general session. It needs to be in class, or let's say conference layout. Needs to hold 350 people. Hopskip now will estimate the square footage needed based on the room layout and number of attendees. I can also specify that AV is also needed in the room. Two things I want to comment here on is, one, in the future, we're going to be coming out with the ability to specify AVs needed, and for the planner to be able to then specify the type of AV needed and have that type of AV needed in the room influence this total space that the room requires. So today, planners can just check the box, yes, AVs needed in the room, and you can override this number in case you think the room needs to be bigger. But in the future, you'll still be able to override it. You'll just have an automatic calculation built in that includes AV. So I'm going to add this room to day one. So now I'm going to say we need this room for all days of our event. Awesome. I appreciate the thumbs up, guys. I'm going to check the box here, click actions, and click copy to all following days. And now my agenda is built out across all 4 days of the event. So this is, again, where you can get pretty detailed with your agendas in a short period of time. Your contract term tab, I won't spend too much time here. This is all pretty standard stuff. It's where you're going to be specifying details of the contract. Your point of contact will pre-populate on the planner point of contact section. Contract signer information is what you'll need to add. Now, just to make sure everyone's clear, we do not share the contract signer name at the time of sending the RFP. We simply just share the city and state, because a lot of hotels will use that city and state to be able to assign the lead to their team or the appropriate salesperson. Last couple things in the RFP builder. So you can see that the contract clauses tab, the questions tab, the concessions tab already done for me. Reason being is because I've already set up my toolbox to automatically include or ask these questions, request these concessions, have these two contract clauses requested to be included. So I can skip this section. I can edit this section if I like, but it's completely done for me. My program info tab is where I can add some supplemental information around the group and event type. I can also specify any deal breakers, success criteria, any program history that I might want to share if it's a reoccurring program. And then lastly, any documents or attachments that live outside of the RFP details that I want to share with hotels, maybe like a past events floor plan, for example. All right, I'm going to now show you the process of adding hotels and what's kind of changed from a search perspective. So the hotel preferences tab, I'll quickly go over because this ties into search. This is where planners, this section of the RFP comes in handy for planners that are not hand selecting hotels and want to receive just suggestions from their industry contacts. This is the tab that informs, or a good chunk of the information that gets relayed to your industry contacts for them to be able to make valuable suggestions. So, I could specify the service type, I could specify the star rating, any preferred chains I could list as well. I'm going to, though, now jump into the Add Hotels tab because this is one of the most recent updates that we've made to Hopskip. This is where you're able to search, discover, and add hotels to your RFP, right? You'll notice a couple kind of key changes that we made in the actual layout and formatting of this page. So you'll have now 3 different little text boxes or search boxes at the top: location, guest rooms. So let's just say, we want to look in Boston, and we want to make sure that there's at least 150 minimum guest rooms. I can add meeting space as well. So let's say we want to only look at rooms with hotels with at least not 5 square feet, 5 meeting rooms. And then I can see all the hotels that fit that criteria. Right? I could also click apply RFP criteria, which this button is going to allow me to specify the details of my RFP and translate those into a filter. So I click apply RFP criteria to apply it, and then I can also reverse it by clicking unapply criteria. If I have any hotels that I'm interested in, I simply click add to RFP. This is a new function too. So instead of having that big add to RFP button, you have this plus sign in the corner. You also have these arrows on the side if you hover over the card. This allows you to see additional photos of the property without having to jump into the details, such as this, right? So I'm able to now see a lot more of hotels in one swoop without having to dive into any details. Adding RFPs to your hotel should be a whole lot easier now. I'm able to see too, when I jump into an RFP and searching for a location, how many hotels Hopskip has in that given location. So hopefully you guys recognize these as improvements. We're always looking for feedback, as you know, so please don't hesitate to reach out. All right, let me jump into this really quickly here. So Giselle, I didn't answer your question about notes. How do you add notes to a hotel? Great question. So when I'm inside a hotel's details, right, and I access this from search, I'll just go back and show you. I click on the hotel card, I click these 3 dots, and I click notes. From here, I could enter my note. A shared note means you're going to automatically share it by default with your teammate, not a hotel. A private note means this is just for you. So I would add my note and click save, and that note will be added and then can be accessed where I was showing you earlier from your planner toolbox. Hopefully that answers that question. All right, so we've added hotels. If I wanted to add any industry contacts like NSOs, DMOs, CVBs, this is where I would do it. You can see this planner already has these contacts added. That's because she set them up in her toolbox. So I don't even need to touch this section unless I want to edit, remove anyone, I can. If I want to add anyone, I can. Now I've added my hotels. I'm going to go to my Send RFP tab, which is a summary of my request, who it's going to, and the key dates involved. If everything looks good, I would click Send RFP. Now, for the sake of time, I didn't fill in all these details, so it's not going to allow me to send it. But if I did, I'd click Send. And at this point in time, the hotels are then receiving an email notification from Hopskip that says, you have an RFP from your company. It'll mention your name, your company's name, and the RFP name. They'll click a button to jump right back into Hopskip to begin reviewing and responding to your request. And when it comes back, as you start to receive proposals back, I'll show you what it looks like just to make sure everyone is aware. So I'm filtering by just this planner's RFPs, so I don't have to see my entire team's RFPs. I'm going to click into one of these. Now I'm brought into the RFP, and I'm going to be brought to my proposal tracker, which is where you're able to track responses across all the hotels that you requested for a proposal. So you'd be able to see at a high level what your overall response rate looks like, and then by hotel, this is where you're going to see the specific response rate from that given property. One thing I noticed too, planners I don't think are aware of, you have a lot more details now at your fingertips without jumping into multiple screens. So if I wanted to see, for example, a timeline of the activities taking place for the Low Sapphire Resort, for example, I just click this little arrow. I can see one, who's supporting that hotel from my list of contacts that I included in the RFP. And then I can see a clean breakdown of all of the different activities that have occurred from the time I've sent the RFP to the time that I've received the proposal. You can also message hotels directly from here. So this will take you to that messaging tab that I'll get to here in a moment. But that's where you can communicate in real time with any of your specific properties. I can jump into the details of any given proposal too, right from my tracker. I just click the view proposal button. I'm brought into the details. I get an overview of my first page of what this proposal entails, another timeline of activity. My financials tab is going to give me an estimated cost for the event. If we were to host it at this given property, I'll see a summary at the top, and then I'll see in my financial details all of the different costs that are associated with making up that total estimated spend. If you're requesting multiple date ranges, you would see multiple tabs at the top for you to be able to view the financial details or estimations for each and every date range. Beneath, you'll also see your financials for meeting space cost, as well as any food and beverage. Hotels, when they receive an F&B request, they have two options. They can submit detailed F&B quotes and rates, and those will appear on this tab, or they can submit a minimum, and that will also appear on this section, which you can see this hotel elected to submit a food and beverage minimum. This is a new section of the proposal details that we recently built and launched based on a lot of planner feedback. So this is your room blocks section. This is going to provide you with all of the details around the room block in the given hotel's proposal. So you'll see at the top what the rates were for that room block. If you had multiple rate ranges, or multiple room types, you'll see a rate range. You'll also see, which a lot of planners have said that this is helpful, a variance or comparison on how this compares to the other room block rates that you received across the other hotels. So down here is where you're going to be able to see the actual given rates by room type, by day, as well as the number of rooms proposed by room type by day. And then you also have a view that shows the rates and the room types by day in the details. While we're here, I'm going to show you your proposal notes. So I think a lot of planners don't know this exists, and that's on us to make this a little bit more obvious, but this is important for a couple different reasons. One, this is what populates your pros and cons section of the PowerPoint presentation that summarizes all of the proposals. So this section, if it's blank, will produce or generate a blank slide. You can always customize or add on to the slide after exported, but I wanted to call that out because I don't think a lot of planners understand or realize that this is what populates the pros and cons of your PowerPoint presentation. Your meeting space section is where you're able to understand the room types that you requested or the event space that you requested, how the hotel is proposing to host those rooms, in which given meeting room at their property. You'll see like a room name, for example. You'll also see the square footage and dimensions of that room and whether or not it has columns, which we know is super important to planners to understand before booking the given event space. Questions is where you're going to be able to see the answers to the questions you asked. Concessions is where you're going to be able to see whether or not the concessions you requested were approved or declined. Oftentimes, you'll see a dollar value for any concessions that were approved, enabling you to be able to show off cost savings back to your stakeholders or clients. Your contracts tab is where you're able to see whether or not the contract language that you requested has been acknowledged from the property. One important thing to call out here, hotels are not agreeing to the language at this point in time. What they are agreeing to is to have a conversation with you around this language if indeed they get shortlisted and you go into negotiations. Attachments is where you're going to find any attachments from this property. I'll call out here as well. You can download, just like in the old Hopskip, any proposal to a PDF. You can also shortlist any given hotel. So let's just say we like the Lowe's Sapphire Falls Resort. We're going to click Create Shortlist. I'm going to put a name to this shortlist, and we're going to add the Lowe's and the Hyatt. Right from here, I'm going to click Create, and now that shortlist is created. And why? One of the reasons why that's important is because when you get to your report section, Let's say you only want to present or report out on your shortlisted proposals. You can do that now. If you create a shortlist, you'll have this filter by shortlist option at the top. I would just select which shortlist, and then I would download the given report or presentation that I want to view. Before we jump to that though, I'll quickly just hit on these other sections that are some of the new enhancements we've made. So your proposals, very similar to what you've seen in the past. This is going to give you a summarized version of the projected cost and break down all of the major cost buckets that make up this total projected spend. So down here, I'm able to see the 4 proposals that we have, what that total estimated spend looks like. And across these columns, I'm able to see how that total spend is made up. I can view just my shortlisted hotels from here if I want, and I can also jump into any given proposal if I want. Let's say I requested multiple date ranges and I'm open to 5 different date ranges. I can also filter and just view estimations for given date ranges versus showing all of them. Chat messaging. This is where I think a lot of people are familiar with this already, so won't go into details here. This is where you can chat and message in real time. You can invite other members of your team to join the chat thread. You can message multiple hotels as well with one message. One of the features we're coming out with here in the near future is not only inviting a team member to a chat message or chat thread, you'll be able to get that teammate will get informed or be notified just like you are when you have an unread message. So that's a new feature that's going to be coming out soon. Our reports section inside RFPs is always evolving. So I think most folks here are pretty familiar with the different reports we have available. We're not going to have time to go into all of them. There's a few that I want to make sure we cover that do have some recent updates, like the PowerPoint presentation, for example. What this report is, or excuse me, this presentation is a summary of the different proposals that you received for this given RFP, and it will export a company branded presentation, which will be downloaded in your company's colors, branding, logos, all that good stuff. So you'll have a summary of the request. You'll have an overview of what you're requesting, everything from locations, the group, the agenda, as well as the pattern. Your sourcing summary is a new slide that provides you with a summarized version of the sourcing activities that you conducted. So you'll see, number of destinations that you were searching for, hotels that you requested, and the proposals that you received and reviewed. This is a new slide as well that's going to provide you with your shortlisted properties side by side in a matrix format. So a lot of planners really like our comparison grid. This is a variation of that. This is where if you create that shortlist, those shortlisted properties, awesome. I see some thumbs up from the crowd, so appreciate that. This is where if you shortlisted some properties, you're going to be able to have those properties spit out on this slide side by side, so you can compare and show your clients or stakeholders the different attributes this property has or proposal data points this property has versus that property. After these sections, so you're going to now jump into the hotel specific sections. You're going to have a cover slide for each property that submitted a proposal. You have a property overview slide that's going to give you an overview of this given hotel. And then you're also going to have a summary of that hotel's proposal. Following that summary of the proposal with some of the new enhancements, as well as you'll notice multiple pictures. So like a big piece of feedback we got from the older version was additional photos are needed. So each slide you'll see between 2 and 5 photos of the given property. And then the last slide in the pack for each and every hotel that submitted a proposal will be your pros and cons. So again, this is where, as I was mentioning earlier, when you're inside a proposal and you click these proposal notes, that's how those pros and cons are going to get populated. Now, this will repeat for every hotel that submitted a proposal. So again, this is where if you requested 60 hotels, you got 40 proposals. I imagine you probably aren't presenting all 40 to your clients. This is where the shortlisting feature and the pros and cons or the proposal notes feature can come in handy, and you can have just a tight presentation of just your shortlisted properties that you want to present to your stakeholders. Lastly, in the presentation, you'll have next steps. This is where you can customize as well. So some of these are generated based off of, some of these next steps are generated based off of the details or data points you enter in your RFP or receive in your proposal. You can customize, delete, add, enhance any of the slides, but this is where you'll need to also specify like when the first deposit's due, for example, because Hopskip today is not capturing that data point yet. To wrap it up here, you're going to now also have a slide that provides an overview of your company, and how this slide gets populated, just to go back into Hopskip, is actually within your organization profile. To access your organization profile, you click your initials in the top right. It's going to take you to your company profile, and this is where you're able to add additional details of your property. So you'll be able to specify an overview of your company below, location and branding. You'll be able to control your subscriptions. So like, let's say you have multiple team members on your team. One has left, you hired another one. You could delete that individual, add a new one, assign a subscription or license to them, all from here. You also have the ability to set up, for those that are commission based on the call, add your IATA number, which is just clicking add commission code. Hopskip is then going to verify your IATA number, and then it will pre-populate all of your RFPs from here on out as requesting commission, and it will include your IATA number by default. All right, last section of the demo, I'm going to make sure planners are also aware of this, is your company dashboards. So you'll notice by clicking this reporting and analytics icon on the left navigation, you have 4 different dashboards available to you. These dashboards are not at the RFP level, they're at the company level. So you'll be able to access your open pipeline dashboard that's going to show you all of the different RFPs that are currently active. What are the status of those? Across all the requested hotels, you'll be able to see open RFPs by chain. You'll be able to see any RFPs that are overdue. You'll also be able to see all of your active RFPs by status. Any of this data too is downloadable and exportable by just clicking that arrow. Your bid history dashboard is going to provide you an overview of the historical bids that were submitted for all of your proposals. So you'll be able to understand, how many RFPs you sent, what's your average response rate look like, what's your average bid rate look like, which is going to calculate out of all of the hotels requested for proposals, how many of those actually submitted proposals. You'll be able to see where you're getting the best proposals from a destination standpoint, or from a chain perspective, or from an overall cost perspective. And then below, you'll see all of those RFPs that make up that total. And you, again, can download all of this data. It's all exportable. You can even specify the different columns or data points you want included in the export now. Last couple of dashboards here that I'll hit on is your bookings dashboard. This is where a lot of planners in the past have told us they don't have an easy way to be able to identify where they've generated business or bookings across all of their RFPs. So this is now the answer to that. This is going to show you how many pieces of book business have you executed? What is your average time to contract? What's your average booking look like from a contract value perspective? What's your total contract value look like across this given date range, for example? You can slice and dice this a lot of different ways. For those of you on the call that might not use USD as your home currency, you can change and toggle that currency very easily. You can also filter this data, by multiple different data points. One of which is clients. So we are coming out with here very shortly a client profile feature. It's going to allow you as a planner to be able to organize and bucket specific RFP elements or RFP templates by client. So you'll be able to now not only do that, but then also report out by client. So if you wanted to see how much book business have I done for client X, I would just come into this filter, select that client. This specific user doesn't have any clients set up, which is why it's blank. But if I did, it would allow me to select the client, and then this data would be filtered on behalf of that given client's activity. You can also see down here, you'll be able to identify the bookings you've generated by location on a map view. And then lastly is cost savings. So in every Hopskip RFP, when you award the bid, you have then the ability to start measuring cost savings. And how cost savings is made up on Hopskip is, think of it as two major inputs. The first major input is concessions that were approved that have a dollar value. The second major input is any negotiated savings that you achieved from proposed to contracted rates. That's at, again, the RFP level. How that all bubbles up across all of your RFPs, across all the cost savings you've gotten from all of your requests, will now be shown in this cost savings dashboard. That's going to provide you with the ability to view the cost savings across your entire team, across this given timeline. You'll be able to see the average savings that you generate per booking, and then all of the RFPs that went to contracted, what those savings look like by request type. Again, you can download, export all of this data yourself, but hopefully this acts as a mechanism for you to be able to go back to your clients and, get some bragging time for the hard work and good work that you were able to achieve. All right, I think that is everything for today. Oh, we got a question. Will cost savings also be able to be done by client? Yes. So Giselle, you will be able to, and this is actually in beta right now, so this is coming very shortly. If you have access to this new client profile feature that I know, Giselle, just because I know your account will have access to this, you'll create client profiles, right, for your clients. And then after the client profile is created, you're going to be able to come into these dashboards and reports and be able to filter this by client. So cost savings is included, and you'll be able to start telling specific clients that this is the cost savings I was able to generate for all of your bookings. So hopefully that was a good answer, or the answer you wanted to receive. And we're, again, always looking for feedback too. So as you get in here and start poking around in these new features, please let us know if anything could be improved, if it's hitting the mark, if it's not hitting the mark. We're all about good, bad, and ugly feedback because it makes us better. Does anybody else have any other questions? That's a great question. Awesome. Another feature quickly that I'll just touch on that's coming out here soon for those that are on the call that I think this could be applicable to is meeting request forms. So that is kind of related to clients, but it's also not specific to planners that have clients. This could be a corporate planner that could utilize this feature. It allows you to be able to capture RFP requirements in a form that you can then send that information to a Hopskip RFP. And you'd be able to do this all through Hopskip. So this is coming out in the next couple of weeks, client profiles as well as client reporting and meeting request forms. So keep a lookout for some announcements from Hopskip. We'll make sure that everyone on this call, of course, gets informed, but we'll be sending out some marketing announcements as we get closer to launch, and we look forward to getting your feedback on that as well. If anybody else has any questions, now's the time to ask, but if not, really appreciate everybody's engagement and positive feedback, and for being Team Hopskip. It means a lot, and we're looking forward to a great 2026 with you all. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you again next time. Thanks, guys.